Okay, everybody. I wonder if we could settle down and begin, because I know probably people don't want to listen to me for too long this afternoon. But welcome to our convocation for 2017. Please do get your snacks, settle down, and you're here to celebrate, all of us together, our past year, and to talk just a little bit about our vision for the future. And I hope that some of you will have already noticed that I've put here SIT, the global university. Now, that's a fairly ambitious statement, and I know I'm being ambitious, but I think you've known me now for 7 or 8 months, and I like to be ambitious, and I think we all do too. Everybody that I've met so far in the SIT world, whether it is in Europe or in Asia or in Africa, has considerable ambitions for this institution. So I want to take these moments to celebrate what we've done so far this year and to think about the future. And I don't mean a global university just in terms of having a few campuses around the place. And I don't mean a global university in terms of having students from all over the world. I mean the first ever global institution that will be a network of learning centers across our globe, bringing students in from everywhere to learn in different spaces. And you can also see there my first point today, which is to celebrate the rebranding of SIT. And you can see there our logo. And part of our message with that logo is that we are one institution made up of an undergraduate study abroad program and a graduate institute. And we are semi-autonomous from World Learning. We do no longer mention World Learning except as our mothership, so to speak, and our owner, of course, as an NGO. And distinctive also from World Learning in Washington, D.C., and in its field offices that focuses on development work. So that so that World Learning Inc. is now made up of 2 elements: a higher education institution, SIT, and World Learning, an NGO working in the field of development, particularly with social justice and education programs. So the first area that I wish to celebrate this afternoon is our move to clean energy over the year. In spring, Windham County we're getting a clap, thank you, yes. Actually, I'm encouraging you to clap throughout this because we've got a lot of wonderful things that we should be celebrating. In spring, Windham County Renewable Energy Program awarded SIT the monies to build our new solar panel array. Please go and take a look, don't go and touch. Our new solar panels that are going up right now near to Bliss House. Funding included a 150 kilowatt photovoltaic project, and that's hard to pronounce and say as well, and money to do crop research around the new panels. And we're going to have a really thrilling series about green energy and green visions for the future around the development of our solar panels and the crop research. Secondly, we've been moving local with our operations and our food service, and I think that deserves another round of applause. Thank you. In August, we said goodbye and thank you to Sodexo, the company to whom we outsourced our facilities management and food services, and we have brought facilities, housekeeping, and food services in-house. We've changed our food service model, reconstructed El Cafe, and are presently creating a community kitchen for our residential students, which will be just round there, by the way. We'd like to thank everybody who was involved in this project, and for students, faculty, and staff who've remained engaged this semester in order to make sure that we're making the best possible start to our new facilities and food operations. Thank you. Another success for this year, and a part of my vision for the future, is deepening our relationships to our communities. And I don't just mean our community here, though that's very important in Brattleboro, but also our communities surrounding our study abroad sites and learning sites throughout the world. SIT has always been involved in the Brattleboro community, whether at groundwork, strolling of the heifers, or supporting language learning at our local high schools. We know that many faculty members, staff, and local alumni are involved as individuals as well. And in fact, many of those organizations were actually started by our alumni. I think particularly, for instance, of Groundworks. SIT is seeking to deepen our presence in the community at every level, from having a stall at Gallery Walk for those who might be interested in engaging with us further, to holding community events here on campus. We really want to extend a hand out and to yell from the rooftops that SIT is here, we stand proud, and we want to be engaged. Unfortunately, also, we have spent much of this year responding to a variety of national issues. Since my arrival in January, we've had to respond to 3 existential crises facing this country: the immigration ban, the threatening of DACA, and the violence and racism of Charlottesville. SIT should be a voice in the national higher education arena and in the regional community, speaking out when our values are threatened or undermined. As we build on our areas of interest, from climate change to humanitarian assistance and beyond, we will aim to expand that voice in the future. On a more positive note, we have also welcomed new staff to SIT. At the senior level, we are welcoming Dr. Catherine Inskeep as Associate Dean for Accreditation and Learning Support, and Dr. Deborah Robinson, not a new face, but has been appointed as our Interim Chief Diversity Officer. And I'd also like now to thank our outgoing Chief Diversity Officer, Michelle Cromwell, for her extraordinary achievements over the past year, and wish her the best for a really amazing new appointment at Regis University. Thank you. Now, from the general to the more specific, we turn to the Graduate Institute. I actually took this photo from our new 360 tour image. And if you haven't tried the 360 tour, I suggest that there are going to be some new 3D goggles coming in. And so maybe try it in 3D. Bruce is forever immortalized on the front scene with our students holding a discussion about peace and conflict transformation, I assume, as the starting point for our new tour. So you can get to know the Brattleboro campus in a variety of new ways through this particular photo. It's really been an extraordinary year at the Graduate Institute with a lot of exciting developments. First, though, I want to give my congratulations to a few individuals. First, of course, congratulations to Dean Williams. For his appointment as the new dean. And by the way, I love that photo if you can. One day maybe I'll photograph that one. So. We also want to congratulate Dr. Sora Friedman for being appointed as the chair of NAPSA's Association of International Education. Sora, where are you? Where is Sora? Okay, thank you, Sora. And we also want to congratulate the graduate admissions team for their very fine work, really helping us reinvigorate some of our admissions activities. And I should include Nkenji in that, because unfortunately she wasn't there for the photo, but she was played a vital role, especially in getting our new hybrid program in sustainable development going in Washington, D.C. I also want to, well, I'm not quite sure whether I should congratulate Jeff Unsicker, but we welcome him back as our interim chair for sustainable development in Vermont. Jeff also teaches at UC San Diego and is an emeritus of SIT with, frankly, a formidable expertise in policy advocacy that he's brought back for this semester in Vermont. So thank you for being with us, Jeff. Now, I can't name everybody, I apologize, but I'm just taking out a few little highlights here. First of all, I've written up here doing what matters, because I want to celebrate in the next few slides the work of the Graduate Institute faculty as practitioners. Amy Jersild, moving from left to right, is an assistant professor and chair of sustainable development in our DC operation. Amy is currently engaged on an evaluation of the Better Work Jordan program of the ILO, And she's implementing this in cooperation with the World Bank, the Jordanian government, and the US Department of Labor. The goal of Better Work Jordan is to improve the lives of over 50,000 workers, primarily from South Asia, in the Jordanian garment industry, by supporting adherence to Jordanian labor law and international core labor standards, as well as enhancing the competitiveness of the garment sector. So this is really important work that Amy is involved with, and we salute her efforts in this regard. We also, We also want to acknowledge the work of Tad Sarai, our Professor of Peace Building and Conflict Transformation, soon to be Peace and Justice Leadership, particularly for his activities over this summer, where, frankly, he's been everywhere and anywhere around Southeast Asia. I particularly picked out, though, the important work that you were doing in Myanmar this August, including a workshop on the essentials of trauma healing and psychosocial support that he gave to 30 Burmese civil society leaders and trainers. This was sponsored by the Center for Diversity and Social Harmony. I think, Tad's, your work there is vital, and the more we hear out of that region, the more we need you guys involved. So thank you. And I also want to thank Carla Saar, who's an assistant professor of international education. She's been working to support the development of USAID's Education in Conflict and Crisis Network. And she's been working on the development and piloting of a toolkit to investigate complex risks pertaining to diverse learning environments, which is currently being piloted in the Honduras, Jordan, Lebanon, and the Philippines. And I think we'll also agree that that's a really vital work that she's up to with USAID. Thank you, Carla. As you can see, we have a lot of people engaged in some really extraordinary activities. So my second slide, on the left, we have, of course, Rylan White, who's professor in service, leadership and management. And she's been contributing throughout this year in social justice activities across New England, including workshops on social justice education, the principles of universal design and disability justice, and racism, power, and privilege. Thank you, Ryland, and keep up the great work. And Bruce Dayton has been leading a workshop, and I'm just picking out a highlight from your year, Bruce. One of the things that really struck me was the work that you were doing with the Hubert H. Humphrey Fellows. Bruce, this is a really prestigious fellowship program run by the State Department. Bruce was invited to go down and lead their workshop on leadership and governance during times of crisis. For 40 Hubert Humphrey Fellows from 29 countries and 15 US universities. And that's a now more than ever needed moment. Thank you, Bruce. We're also looking at researching what matters. And in that regards, I've picked out just a couple of individuals who've done some great publication work this year. Alla Korj, where are you, Alla? I know, yes, Alla, who's an assistant professor of international education. She's been a participant of the Ukraine Democracy Initiative, and that's an area of the world that sometimes I feel like it's fallen off the news cycle over the past year, and we need to kind of get our minds back to it. And as you know, Alla, part of my heart will always live in Ukraine. It was the first country that I lived in as a foreign country. And so I'm deeply involved, and it's wonderful that one of our professors is engaged in supporting democracy in that country. So she's working with the initiative, which is based at the University of Sydney, and her latest publication will be in a volume, Reimagining Diaspora and Democracy in the Heart of Europe. And I'm so very sorry that we're having to write a book with that title yet again. Thanks, Alla. And our final person in terms of research, thanks, goes to Davina Durgana, who is our assistant professor in sustainable development down in Washington, D.C. She's just completed a special edition of Chance, which is a journal produced by the American Statistical Association on the global measurement of modern slavery. And that's not a word that you expect to use in contemporary society these days. Davina will be featured also in the Forbes 30 Under 30 podcast, because she is one of the 30 Under 30, for her work in measuring slavery in late September. Congratulations, Davina, for all your hard work. And I feel like I missed one of the photos. Leslie, I'm so sorry. I had it written down and I thought, where's Leslie's photo? So it was between Ryland and Bruce. I wanted to say, because there's been nothing concrete as yet from our TESOL colleagues, but I wanted to talk about their hard work this past year in terms of getting the TESOL program back involved with refugee education. And that has been Marty, Leslie, and yes, Elizabeth. I know I was looking at Elizabeth too. But I know that many of you have also been involved with this. You know, it hasn't borne fruit yet, but we all have our fingers crossed for the future. And I wanted to congratulate and acknowledge the hard work that your team has already put into getting us there. So thank you, guys. So, of course, another amazing success for us this year has been with our global scholars. And I got a little egotistical here, and, well, there was a good picture, and I was in the middle of it. Sorry, guys. The introduction of the global scholars to our campus has really changed our student body for the better. I think that what they bring to the campus raises the caliber of everything that we do. It raises the expectation level in terms of what we are expecting from our students. They really have enriched our lives. And I really hope that we're going to be able to continue with that program in the future. And I would like to thank the Global Scholars for their patience and fortitude in going with us to various locations and talking about their experiences, and through their activities promoting SIT to the wider world. We could not have been more proud to have hosted them here. As with all our students, and I emphasize this, as with all our students, we are humbled by what they bring to us, knowing how much we are enriched as a community by those exceptional individuals who choose to make their academic home at SIT. So this is a thanks not only to the Global Scholars, but to all the students who choose to come and work with us. Thank you. So moving on to SIT Study Abroad, it's been another year of excellence and expansion. We opened summer program enrollment on September 15th with 6 new internship and 4 new full semester programs, bringing to 24 the total number of programs we're offering in summer 2018. This comes after a banner 2017 summer that marked the highest summer enrollment on record. So first of all, I'd like to give my congratulations. I apologize to the we didn't get their photos up here as well, but I'd like to congratulate the Study Abroad Admissions and University Relations team. Good job, guys. Thank you. I'd also like to pass on in that regard our congratulations and thanks to the Academic Director and Program Director teams. Now, the photos that you see here are actually from our regional meetings with our academic and program directors, though unfortunately the IHP group are not here, so we're going to have to rectify that for next time. This was during the summer workshops that they held this year in Australia, Rwanda, Morocco, and Panama. Discussions in each of these workshops focused on delivering compelling research methods and ethics seminars, curriculum and support needed for successful internships, how to balance classroom and field learning, managing student group dynamics, and evaluation of student work. As you can see, we were learning in some amazing places, but that's exactly what it means to have SIT as the global university. And we're very much looking forward to seeing everybody together once again in Vermont next year. So congratulations on a hard year of work and a very successful looking year ahead. Thank you. We're launching a number of new semester programs. We launched one in fall 2017, Tunisia and Italy, Politics and Religious Integration in the Mediterranean. This program assesses the complex political and religious linkages that define the geopolitical map in the Euro-Mediterranean region. And then we're going to be launching 2 further programs in the spring, which I hope you will be able to go out and talk about. The first will be in Ghana. Ghana, Africa in the 21st Century, looks at Africa's changing landscapes from Ghana, the first African country to achieve independence, where changes parallel to those occurring in many other countries are taking place. And then finally, in Senegal, where global security and religious pluralism examines how international and religious bodies are working to promote stability and peace in West Africa. So that's congratulations to the academic deans and the academic directors for formulating these new programs. I know how much work and time goes into creating these events, and particular congratulations to Africa for having 2 of these new programs taking place. You know, SIT has a particular focus in Africa. We go to places that most other study abroad programs do not go, because we believe in searching out the different, the unusual, the global south, places that, you know, that are not your ordinary study abroad. So in taking people to places like Senegal and Ghana, you can see how we are really fundamentally fulfilling our mission. I also want to acknowledge and congratulate the internship program. This was a new endeavor for SIT Study Abroad to get into the internship market. They've really gone in with a lot of programs, and students are already showing tremendous interest. We've now introduced internships in about 24 programs in 2017. We're expanding this popular option for 2018 to 30 semester programs in 23 countries across every region and critical global issue. SIT's locations and deep partnerships and networks worldwide give us a major strength as an internship provider and have facilitated this rapid innovation. And instead of internships being simply, you know, finding a business and doing some sort of business game, instead we're able to place people with, you know, important NGOs that are actually working on the ground to make a difference in people's lives. So thank you very much to the Study Abroad team and to Riley for his work on internship programs. Riley's here. We've also had a wonderful year in terms of study abroad student services. And in fact, actually, the whole of student services was really involved in this one. So we've been holding diversity and inclusion workshops. We held 2 in January, and we're going to be holding another 2 this January, and in that way getting across the entire study abroad region. The first 2 this past January were held by Michael Smallers, Jennifer Kaur, Julia Carpige, and also Nkenji was involved. They designed the diversity and inclusion workshops and held them in Johannesburg and Ho Chi Minh City. The idea was to address US university student experiences and perspectives. Renamed as Student Affairs Local Staff Workshops, the next sessions will be held in Tunis and Quito in January. Now, as you're all aware, this is a really important area for us. We want to make sure that both that our students are in a very safe environment, but also in an environment that understands their needs and where they're able to address the issues of diversity and inclusion, not just in terms of with their group and in their local culture, but also internally in their group, especially as SIT Study Abroad really moves forward in terms of its diversity. And in fact, I note with considerable pleasure that SIT is leading the pack in terms of diversifying its student body for study abroad, which really represents the best of who SIT is and what we want to be. So thank you, Study Abroad, for thinking about diversity and inclusivity. Thanks. So we turn to some student achievements. This is one of my favorite stories from this year. This is Mindy Goodman and her frog. So for the third year running, we have discovered a new species in Ecuador. So I don't know, I mean, it's like the poor group that's incoming, you know, if they don't actually discover a new species, they'll have failed. So I think maybe there was also a new ant involved too. So this is our student Mindy on our increasingly competitive, as you can imagine, study abroad program, Ecuador Comparative Ecology and Conservation. So more students discovering more new species. I'd also like to recognize a couple of other of our student achievements. Maya Sutton and Lani Kupo, who won our undergraduate research awards this year. One of Study Abroad's hallmarks is its commitment to undergraduate research. We are often the gateway to a student's research career. This will be the first time ever that they really produce a substantial research paper. And in some cases, and I'm looking at you, Anne, they are actually producing a substantial research paper in a second language. Can you imagine walking in and by the end of the semester, you have to produce 40 pages of something in-depth in Spanish? But that's exactly what they do every semester. For this reason, amongst many others, we aim to celebrate annually our students' achievements with a series of awards for excellent research. The undergraduate nominees this year showed SIT's academic rigor on full display. They produced papers such as Whiteness Under Pressure, Race, Masculinities and the Negotiation of Power in a Transforming South Africa, or Relocation, Resistance and Resilience, Squatter Community Responses to Government Intervention for Urban Development in Kathmandu, and Bruinhouse Are the Main House, Exploring Coloured Masculinities in Wentworth Township. Ultimately, the awards went to Maya Sutton Smith of Connecticut College down the road, and SIT Mongolia, Nomadism, Geopolitics and the Environment for her paper, Remembering Negdels, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Nostalgia, Memory and Soviet-Era Herding Collectives. And then the other winner was Lani Kupo of Occidental College and SIT Nepal, Tibetan and Himalayan Peoples, for her paper, Heretical Science, Deconstructing the False Dichotomy of Buddhism and Science. Congratulations to them both and to all those SIT undergraduates who found their inner scientist, their inner humanist, and their inner social scientist whilst being in the inspirational new environments of SIT study abroad. Congratulations. Okay, so a little bit about the future, and I will be brief because I know there's more snacks on the way. So the Global University. These are the three goals that I believe we should have. That we become a network of learning sites throughout the world for undergraduates and graduates, that we have an international and diverse student body, and that we provide innovative programming based on critical global issues. This is a sort of a few statements of belief. I think that we should be a global institution for a new age. Now, that sounds very positive, but actually partially it's negative in the sense that it is necessary at this time when, for instance, we are seeing the rise of nationalist rhetoric, when we are seeing the rise of populist rhetoric, when we are seeing people standing up at the United Nations without naming names and talking about how it should be each nation first rather than an international organization or an international community first, that the idea of being a global institution is highly important and highly apropos. I therefore propose to you that we should be an institution where we are being human and thinking globally, where we are anti-nationalist and anti-populist by being global. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I mean by that. You know, I I was thinking yesterday when I was listening to some snippets of the United Nations speech, and particularly I was thinking about North Korea. And we've heard a lot about North Korea over the past few months. And, you know, I had a literature background, so I tend to think in metaphors and metonyms. And I've noticed how quickly the phrase North Korea has become a metonym. It stands in for a dictator and we mistake the person at the top and the people at the top for the actual people who live in that country. So I want us to reflect for a second what that means to stand up and say something like, we will destroy North Korea. What are we saying? What are we saying? What are we talking about, getting rid of a regime? No, that's not what that person said. That person talked about wiping out a country and all its peoples. Now, why was I particularly thinking about that? Because, I guess because I've been there. And not only been there, but I've actually lived with people in North Korea and worked with people in North Korea for many years in my past life. And I saw what conditions were like there. You know, I saw people who, no cars, no currency. At that time, it was purely a period of famine. People live in little boxes. The only decoration was the photos of the family, the ruling family, with a bare bulb, you know, entire families to one little room. Electricity was very sparse. Most of the time it wasn't on. The old trams, when they ran, often you'd see people standing on top of the trams trying to hold the electricity cables to the electricity lines to make sure that they kept running. Most of the time, you know, people were not allowed to go near us. In fact, one day we escaped from our minders, and on one occasion when I was out there, and walking around the block, you know, trying to say hello to people, because at that time maybe I was a bit young and naive, and I didn't realize that contact with me may have terrible repercussions on those families. And what I saw was people running away from us because they knew what could happen if they got near the scary foreigners. So I guess when I say being human is that I think we want us to always see the human dimension, to see the people behind the rhetoric, and to remember that real change and real conversation is when you take people like leaders, especially the leaders that we have in some places today, out of the conversation, and we think about changing that conversation on the ground. So we, as an institution, I hope that we will always be human, remember the human, and that we will think about how we can bring change at that level. I also think we need to think globally. You know, I was a big fan of Bernie Sanders, but I was always slightly disappointed by his conversations about overseas and about thinking beyond these borders. I understand very well that he considered that, like, we've got so many problems here, we need to sort them out. But I do think that the start of the conversation has to be international and has to continue to be international. Because the way we impact each other's lives today, the things that confront us as a world, they cannot simply be discussed nationally. So we hope at SIT that we will always think globally. So we act and we are humans and we think globally. And we stand up against nationalism and we stand up against populism in every country that we work with. And this is a good moment to remind ourselves that we are not just a US institution, but that we are an institution in something like 78 countries across the world. So that means many different things in many different places, and we have to think that through. I've just written down a few things that I think we believe as an organization that we should use as axioms moving forward. We believe that education changes lives. We believe that education should be based in social justice and equality. We believe that higher education at the undergraduate level to ensure that people can be independent, and we believe in undergraduate level education to build leaders of change, that this type of education is also vital in any society and any condition. And finally, we believe that internationalization does not simply mean the dominance of global elites and corporations over democratic institutions, which is unfortunately what it's often come to mean over the past couple of decades. So we have to re-find a socially progressive way of thinking about internationalization, and that's what I hope and what I believe that we should be standing for and attempting to do in the future. What I mean by point 3, and I would come back to that just for a second here, because one of the problems, I've worked in higher education support and development now for more than 20 years, and one of the biggest obstacles that I have found to change is that a lot of donor organizations, foundations, states, they always talk about primary education, but they don't want to invest in higher education, and they particularly don't want to invest in graduate education. It's as if these are luxuries. Well, as many of you people, well, probably everybody in this room knows, higher education is no longer a luxury. If somebody wants to be able to lead a decent life, support their family, have a career, they need some type of higher education. And if they want to go on and become a leader in their field and really promote change, it's increasingly hard to be able to do that without graduate education. So, and I believe at SIT that we are building such leaders of social change. So this type of education is also a necessity, and we need to be continuing that conversation with donors across the world so that they begin to understand that money needs to be available to train the trainers, to train the teachers who are going to work in primary schools, to train people to go out there and build NGOs and affect change in their community, and in particular to build leaders who are going to be able to make change in their community. I give you, for example, the work that we used to do in my previous life in Roma support. That is the biggest minority in Europe. And in that world, the problem that we had was that, the biggest minority in Europe, significant issues, we're talking about groups of individuals who still, for instance, had separate toilets from people of other ethnic backgrounds in primary schools, that were being sent to special needs classes, because they were considered to be automatically sub-educational par, but when tested were actually not, etc. So we're talking about a significant group of people with significant needs. And, but there was nobody to speak to them, for them, other than other people. Because there were no leaders in the Roma community. There were very few that could speak the international languages, stand up in Strasbourg, stand up in Geneva, stand up in Washington, D.C. And therefore, because they didn't have the access to higher education, they didn't have the access to graduate degrees, and they were, therefore, they could not stand up necessarily and act for themselves, except for a few really inspired individuals. They did not have that access. So instead, it was always other people speaking for them. So this is one of the reasons why I believe it's so important to promote not only change in this regard and to provide that type of higher education, but also to keep having that conversation with organizations so that they will begin to understand what it means to support BAs and MAs and beyond. Also, I've just put in a couple of slides that talk about what I think we need to be doing in the future in order to make that belief system a reality. Now, one of the problems that we have, obviously, is that we need to have the finances to be able to go and do the things that we would like to do concerning our social values. So I've entitled this slide, Walking Our Walk, Building an Institution that can support our social justice values. To that end, I am aiming with all of us, and I know that many of you want to do this too, to increase our international funding, to be able to increase our scholarshiping for particular sectors, specifically to promote diversity, and to support equality and minority education, to increase our external activities so that we can be in the world and walking the walk, and at the same time promoting ourselves and bringing money back into our programs so we can scholarship, and finally building on our global connections. And we do have many amazing connections throughout the world through our SIT offices in all those different countries. You know, one of those Roma students who I worked with through the program that I developed and my office developed in Eastern Europe, she went through that program to support young people, young Roma, to go on and do higher education. She wrote to me when I got this job, and she said, "Hey, Sophie, do you think SIT is the place for me? I'm now looking for somewhere to do a master's degree." And I said, "Yes, absolutely, please apply." Unfortunately, she's not here this semester because we couldn't provide enough scholarship for her. And I would like us to be able to be in a position to provide that money to those who really need it and those that we really want to have at this institution to make it a more inclusive institution. And obviously it doesn't make me happy that we couldn't just suddenly go out and give big scholarships. You know, but it's all about making sure that we are secure for the future and that we're building the types of programming that will allow us to do all those wonderful things that I know we want to do. We are also, in that regard, building new programs, and I'm not going to go into details here, but we are building new programs and revisioning our programs to ensure that SIT maintains and extends its relevance to this age and beyond. And I know, and I mentioned some of these things earlier, I know that many of you out there are really ready and willing to go out and start those new programs, to revision your programs, and to start special new projects out there that are really going to reflect on our social values. And I would just pick on a few things. First of all, congratulations to Global Youth Development and Leadership. I don't know if John or Cy Norton are here. There's John, who put together the new Masters of Education that will be bringing in students from spring. I would also like to congratulate the Peace and Conflict Transformation team for really going above and beyond and revisioning that into really what I think is a sensational program that's going to combine theory with hard skills, with work with mediators, with actually being able to go out into the field and put those types of ideas into practice, into some of the extraordinary sites that we can provide. And I'm looking forward very soon to being able to put up on our website new programs for the summer, including in social innovation and international environmental management, which I'm hoping will be the first degree that we do as a joint degree with Antioch, New England. Other programs that are coming up will be in climate change, hopefully in global health, in humanitarian assistance, and I'm having a cautiously interesting conversation with international education about our first doctorate, so fingers crossed with that one. So we're really excited. So a final slide about the future, because as I said, I don't want to go on too much about this at the moment, really just to give you a taste of how we are going about trying to achieve an institution that is able to walk the walk and fulfill our belief systems. So the last slide that I want to leave you with for this Convocation 2017 is really a kind of remembrance for the year. And what I'd like us to remember is that we are one SIT, and to ask yourselves the question, and I know some of you are online, and this is an important question, what does SIT mean to you? In autumnal Brattleboro, in a refugee center in Jordan, on the steppes of Mongolia, in the Himalayas, in the tribes of Patagonia, in the Amazonian rainforest, in the corridors of power of Avenue K in Washington, D.C. Because everybody in those places is SIT. We are all SIT. And this year, I ask us to make a pledge to understand ourselves in our fullness, so we can express our beliefs as an institution, as action for our future. Thank you very much and have a great year.